Good afternoon. Sean here, Mountains Garage. I'm outside. It's a beautiful day. Not quite as warm as yesterday, but I got the shop doors open because I'm airing it out. Because I did finally start the 71 Nova. But before I did, I had 2 solid days off and on worth of loose ends. And once it runs, it always uncovers a few more loose ends. But it's all part of the process. It all has to be done. I let the paint on the wheels dry overnight. Now it's early morning and I'm out here mounting and balancing them. I'm going to go ahead and balance because these wheels and tires are going to stay together as a pair on something. I set the machine to single inside and then I use stick-on weights. This one took like 3 ounces. 275 the first time and a half an ounce to finish it off. But you can mess around moving the tire on the rim, but that's acceptable for a big tire. Making some progress this beautiful Saturday morning. I finished balancing the rear tires, mounted them up, had to move the left tailpipe about 1/4 of an inch, had to bend the bracket a little bit, and I polished up the hubcaps, put those on after I torqued the wheels. I removed the rest of the castle nuts that I hadn't touched on the front suspension linkage. Made sure they were tight and recotter pinned them. So now I've recotter pinned everything and checked everything for tightness because I did not install that stuff. Stuck the front wheels on. Now we're going to lower it down for the first time, see what it looks like sitting on the real ground instead of jack stands. And I need to align the front end if everything looks good. Well, I set it down most of the way and I bolted the bent seat back in so I could close the doors. And I was blowing off under the hood with an air hose, blew the dust off, and I remembered I hadn't put the dipstick in yet for the engine. So that was a project, but that's in there now. I'm going to have to put zippers on the inner fenders because working on it this way isn't bad, but with the inner fenders in, it's not going to be as much fun, that's for sure. I didn't like the style of nut that was on the rear leaf spring hangers, so I ordered some 7/16 fine Nylox. I needed 4. I ordered 100. And these are the turbo drains for the 72 Nova. Cool packaging in Boost We Trust, but they took 2 weeks to get here from Colorado. Oh well, it is a pretty cool bag. That's what it had for nuts on the leaf spring shackles. They don't lock. I much prefer the nylon locking nut. I started 2 weeks ago today to repair the rear suspension, and I think it's done. I can bounce up and down on the rear bumper, and the tires don't hit anywhere. Wheel well's definitely full. That's the look I like. It's got a slight rake downhill. It'll look better outside, but with less stuff in the way. But now I got a few more things to do under the hood, which I guess I'm going to do next. Kind of want to hear it run and then maybe align the front end. I keep flip-flopping those two, but it's a nice day. I could take advantage of having the door open to run it. We'll see. It's early Sunday morning and a nice quiet activity is to go ahead and do the front end alignment. When I installed the aftermarket control arms, I had swept the spindle through its up and down travel, and I know I'm pretty close on camber. The caster, you have to choose which way you put the slot in the upper control arm. I set it on maximum, so I guess I'll do a sweep and see where that is, but I don't think I can adjust it a whole lot. We'll go over that in a minute. First off, I'm going to put my gauge on the hub, and these handy old snap-on pliers, that's the part number, I made to go right under the lip, and then you tap on the side and it knocks the cap off without denting it. And then when you reinstall it, you hit on the flat surface here, not out here with a hammer. So with the gauge snapped on, it's magnetic, which is nice. I level the gauge itself. I'm just under 1 degree positive camber. So the top of the tire needs to go in, so I'm adding shims in the upper control arm. pretty much sitting on 0 now. It says to read the middle of the bubble. As soon as this one zeros, that one takes off the other way. It's nice with everything new. When I start backing the nuts off, this gap opens up and I can add shims accordingly. I try to add more in the rear to cock the control arm to get more caster as well, even though I haven't measured it yet. So these spaces are the ones I'm talking about. When I install the control arms, you can put the control arm forward or control arm back. I put it back as far as possible. Now if I can gain a little more caster with the shims, that's fine too. As you loosen the nuts, you can watch the gauge, and it wants to be at 0. It wants to be straight up and down. So when you take the tension off it, that's the position it goes to, and then you just shim accordingly. To do a caster sweep, you turn the wheel in approximately 15 degrees, level and 0 the gauge, and then turn it the other way and in 15 degrees. I just use the flat on the steering wheel. I go 1 flat, 0 in the gauge, level the gauge, and then go 2 the other way. So I've gone back to straight and then 1 turn the other way and check it. As long as you're doing both sides the same, the number is, what it is. As long as you're consistent on both sides. And I'm showing positive 3 degrees, which is awesome. Now if I can match the other side to this, we're good. Factory Nova spec is only 1/2 degree. I guess I didn't want you to go very fast, because the more positive caster, the straighter the car is going to want to go. And this car has quite a bit of rake, which takes away your positive caster. The more you jack up the back, the less caster you have positive. A lot of people learned that in the 70s with their air shocks. Over here on the driver's side, it repeated 0 degree camber, 3 degrees positive caster, and I didn't have to add any shims. This is the same shims I assembled it with. I was pretty sure I was close, and from the factory this side had more shims in it, so we're kind of mimicking what it had. So now I got to set the toe, and we're done. There's no question if this car set level and it wasn't jacked up in the back, I'd probably have 4.5 degrees anyway. But I can live with 3. And it's pleasantly jacked up in the back a little bit. I'll put the gauge back in its casket. I bought this from Speedway. That's the part number. For toe in, the factory specs are 1/8 to 1/4. I like to be 1/8 to maybe 3/16. I lock the wheels flat and straight using my center bar as horizontal. Before I set anything, I'll eyeball down, and I'm visually straight, because you can have the toe in correct, but if you don't start relatively straight, as soon as you drive forward, the wheel's going to be off center, because the toe down here is going to always be correct, and it doesn't care what happens to the steering wheel. So start with everything visually straight, and it's probably going to turn out all right. Don't despair if you're all done setting the toe and your wheel's crooked. You can move both tie rod adjusters the same amount in opposite directions. You got to move one in and one out, or vice versa. You can center the wheel, or you could start all over, but let's try to get it right the first time. I started this morning goofing around with the Tremel, which is what this is called, and you set it across the back of the tires using a familiar tread groove or something, or you can mark the tire. And then when you put it across the front, it'll show you the difference between the two measurements. But with a low riding car, doing it by yourself, it works. I got it pretty close, but it's made by Longacre as well. I don't have a part number for the Tremel because I bought it at a yard sale. But while I was buying the caster camber gauge, I also sprung for the toe plates. These just lean on the outside of the tire. One side has a magnet for your supplied tape measures they give you. Even comes with instructions. If you want a part number for that, also from Speedway. I bought it the same day a while back, years ago. So let's slap these on there and see where we're at. What I like about the toe plates is it gives you a nice visual looking down toward the rear tire. So again, I mentioned my wheel is straight and these are visually straight. When I drive it, everything should be where it belongs. Tail of the tapes, I'm 68 3/8 across the back and 68 1/4 across the front. So I'm towed in 1/8. Perfect. And not a necessary step, but I had the Trammel out anyway, so I double checked my results. And we're done. All things alignment related are done. Tight, tools put away. Now I just got to finish up a little bit of wiring under the hood. Doing the final termination of my battery cables. I had them extra long when I was test running the engine. And now I'm going to shorten them up. I love this Harbor Freight hydraulic crimper. Comes with all kinds of different jaws. It's cheap money. I've been using it for a couple years now. Absolutely love it. Hydraulic wire crimping tool. It's going to look something like that. I just have some things to take care of here. I got a plan for this stuff, so let's carry that out. This vintage Nova had a ground wire hooked in with a battery cable and a power wire hooked on the positive side. And I've never liked that. So I'm going to cut and remove that. It goes to a screw on the radiator support. I'm going to disconnect the red wire from this junction box. My alternator harness, that red wire also connects right there, so I'm going to disconnect that. I'm going to leave, I'm not going to remove this harness completely because I believe I need to use one of these wires or a wire to connect into the alternator. I have to jumper it over where the voltage regulator is, and that'll shut off my gen light on the dash. But I don't like this stretched across here. I never have. So I'm going to make a new 3-wire harness, and the power is going to come off the stud on the alternator. I also have a heavy wire going down to the connection on the starter where it joins the other end of the battery cable. Just neater. I'm going to ground the cylinder head. This ground here is going to go over the cylinder head. And I'm going to add the 3rd wire if I need to hook into this tan one or beige one. So I'll run it right along with the battery cables. It'll just be a lot neater and get rid of all this extra stuff that I dislike. I like the non-insulated terminals with heat shrink. I think it looks the best. Makes for a nice looking harness. That's a lot cleaner looking. This harness will be going away when I finish the alternator install. I dumped in about 4 gallons of 93 octane that I had. And dumped a little bit down the front vent to put some in the front bowl. Let's see if it runs. Got a dome light. That's a good sign. Now that I've climbed up in the car, I realize my fire extinguisher is over on my MIG welder, but at least I know where it is. There's another one to my left. You know, you got to be prepared. Turn the key on. Brake light and gen light, I expect that. Couple pumps, we'll see what happens. Not bad, huh? We're gonna lose these lights. Don't run out of gas, I don't have any more. Pretty quiet. I haven't done any final tuning yet. I'll let it warm up a little bit, see what happens. I forgot I had the pocket brake on, so it's doing its job. Gen light I know how to fix, I gotta do a little extra wiring. Well, hey, it runs. I'm really happy with the way the alignment came out. I think I got the big tires to fit. That's no longer an issue. Again, I've been working 2 days just finishing up loose ends. Did finally start it. So far it's quieter than I remembered, but tomorrow I'll back it outside, get it fully warmed up, adjust the carb and the timing and everything for the final time, and we'll see what it really sounds like then. Maybe I'm okay with it being quiet. Maybe it'll have a nice shriek to it. You don't know. All things to decide. I'm not going to get the Sawzall out and cut the exhaust off tomorrow. Maybe the next day. Chipmunk. I get distracted by a woodland creature. Anyway, like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. We got all kinds of stuff to do this week. And thanks for watching. Take it easy.